Today we're coming to you from the Michener Gardens here in Red Deer on the east side of the city. Through the fall we've had lots of opportunity to talk about creation care and the many things that God's calling us to in regards to caring for the things that He's created. Today we have the opportunity to hear from somebody that you know well because he leads worship at our church, but during the week he does something that's pretty amazing too. So Ken, it's good to have you here.
Thanks, Dal. Good to be here.
Ken, you work for the city of Red Deer. What do you do and what's your title?
Yeah, so my title is Parks Ecological and Planning Specialist, and I work with the Parks section. And basically I manage spaces like this, and particularly the natural spaces and the natural realm of these types of spaces. So that's urban wildlife related. I have a hand in wetland compensation, community gardening, that whole gamut of things.
So basically, the outside is your office, the outdoors is your office.
Woo!
Oh, that's great. Now you've grown up in Red Deer, you spent lots of time in central Alberta. What are some of the things that you enjoy about this place?
Yeah, I enjoy so much. I've got a lot of roots in this area, just having, like you said, Dallas, having grown up, biking these trails and hiking through a lot of the parks in Red Deer. And really the Waskesiu Park system in Red Deer is, I can't say enough good about it, so I'm really blessed to be able to work in it and to help steward and to help design new parks added to existing park. My kids and I love to do loads of stuff throughout the park system, and there really is a good variety of activities that you can do throughout the Waskesiu Park system in Red Deer. So I'd have to say parks is at the top of the list.
Oh,
yeah.
Totally, that's great. Now in all your time of being here in the city and looking over everything and being amazed by what it is that God's placed here, what are some of the concerns that you might have? You know, sometimes we take for granted the nature and the creation that's around us, but what are some concerns that you might have about the city?
Yeah, so I've thought up four different areas of concern, so I want to share that with everyone. The first and foremost is threats to biodiversity. So as a conservation biologist, I'm concerned with the rate of species loss that we're seeing. And to put this in context, a third of our amphibians, 1 in every 4 mammals, and 1 in every 8 of the known plant species are actually threatened. And so that is concerning. There's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of factors that go into that, and many of them are human-induced. So I'll share a few of those with you. Introduction of invasive species that outcompete natives. There's overexploitation of the resource, and habitat loss. So developing cities, agriculture industry often displaces that native habitat, that natural habitat that species require. I also want to explain just real briefly the importance of species diversity and how that is needed for a healthy ecosystem. When you don't have species diversity, you don't have a healthy ecosystem. Some of the things that a healthy ecosystem will do will be to provide services. So there's each individual piece of that ecosystem that works to provide something that makes the whole system work. So pollinators are a good example of this in that, and it directly relates to us in that 1 in every 3 bites is thanks to animal pollinators. Okay, so 35% of the global crop throughout the world requires animal pollinators, such as honeybees, like we all know. But even more importantly, I would argue, our native bees are really good pollinators. But birds, insects, including flies and beetles, there's a whole bunch of different pollinators. So we're seeing that some of those populations are dropping off, which is concerning. So that's threats to biodiversity. I also highlight water and the concern around both the amount of water and the quality of water, as both are being negatively impacted by a lot of the reasons why I previously listed. Urban development, there is pesticide use has been attributed to degrading quality of water. We're losing wetlands at an increasing, or we have over the last decade or two lost a lot of wetlands, especially in the parkland region. There's 70% wetland loss in our area. So this has impacted water and our resource greatly in this respect. To bring it closer to home, we use, on average, a Red Deerian uses 195 liters of water a day, which is twice what the average in Europe would be. So we use a lot of water. So water consumption, water use, water quality, threats to biodiversity. The third would be just the fact that we consume a lot. We're consumers. We live in a consumer society. Often we make purchases and we don't think about the impact or the ecological footprint of those products that we're buying. So where they come from, how much does it cost to get them to where they need to be, what's the impact of taking them out of wherever they come from. There's a lot of things that go into ecological footprint, and we could talk about that for 2 hours. But that would be the third point, the third concern, and then the fourth would be just a disconnect from the natural world, a disconnect from the Creator, ultimately. And Richard Louv actually coined a phrase, nature deficit disorder, or a term, nature deficit disorder, and what that describes is a lack of disconnect or a lack of children getting out into nature and developing as they should develop, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, socially, all these different components of development, and how they're increased childhood obesity, all the screen time like Jordan alluded to last week, 6 to 11 hours on average. I mean, that's taking away from some of that development that needs to happen in places like this, where they're getting dirt under the fingernails, they're falling off something and learning from that experience, where they're learning about creation and the Creator and the character of the Creator from being in environments like this.
What are some of the suggestions that you might have that would make it so that people just in their everyday life could make some of the changes that would affect the concerns that you talked about?
Yeah. I'll touch on a few, and how I'll do this is I'll touch on a few with respect to the 4 concerns that I listed earlier. So the first one was threats to biodiversity, and actually that second, water piece, I'm going to lump those into one group and just say tend to the garden. So some things that we can do practically to tend to the garden is in our backyards, we can throw in water barrels, rain barrels, and catch that water coming off the roof and make use of that, as opposed to pulling it from our taps. It's better for plants anyway. Another thing that we can do is naturescape, so provide that habitat that's going to benefit pollinators and going to benefit the critters, that the biodiversity that's going on all around us, to create more of that in our yards. Another thing I would say is be conscious of invasive species. So when you're planting things, be conscious of what will grow here and what you can control. There's certain things that are planted that are actually displacing a lot of native stuff, getting out of flower beds and displacing native stuff in natural areas. People let their cats run all the time. Cats kill birds. I mean, it's responsible pet care. There's a lot that goes into how you manage your yard. The product that you're throwing on your grass and in your yards, how you care for your trees with tree pests and that kind of thing. A lot of this stuff impacts especially aquatic environments when you think about pesticides, herbicides. So just be conscious of that. Another thing you can do is compost. We're standing at Michener Gardens, and we've got this compost heap beside us. Now this material is going to be taken to the landfill and composted there in a specific compost heap. But you can do this at home as well, and just compost your yard waste, compost the organics that would normally just go in your waste stream and fill the landfill. I mean, 40 to 50% of our waste is organics. Compost that stuff. Throw it onto your garden, throw it into your planting beds. It's a great thing to do to reduce waste and to feed your gardens, feed your plants. So with water, we can further make an impact by using low flow toilets. So reduce that 20 liter to a 6 liter, and there's a rebate program through the city that can help you do that. Take a shorter shower. There's a lot of things that we can do in the house to reduce our impact that way. So tend to the garden. Waste less would be the second point, and again, it's like 260 kilograms or 600 pounds of garbage is what the average Red Deerian contributes to the landfill. Let's reduce that by composting the organic piece of that, but also just reducing the amount of waste that we produce. Think about what you're buying, what you're purchasing, and the ecological footprint or the ecological impact of those purchases. And there's a calculator online, there's multiple calculators where you can actually calculate your ecological footprint. So I encourage everybody to do that. It lets you know what kind of impact you are having by the purchases that you make and by the things that you do, especially within your house, just to manage efficiently and with creation in mind. Another thing I would say with waste is there are things that we can do on a practical level, like with Adopt a Park, with the Green Deer program, with the river cleanups in the city. Just get out, start picking up garbage, be on the lookout for ways that you can clean up some of these, especially these natural areas that if garbage is laying around and if we're not looking after them properly, I mean, living in an urban context, they can get pretty dirty looking, and it does impact the biodiversity in those areas. So the third area would be, I would say, eat lighter and healthier. So we're standing in a community garden site here in Michener. This was the first year for this site, and you should have seen the produce in here just a few weeks ago. I mean, it did so well, and people were loving that whole process of pulling produce from the ground, planting it, seeing it grow, and then harvesting that at the end of the season. Hugely rewarding. And there's community that develops in these types of situations. Amazing community. And I get paid to come out and hang out with them, so it's pretty awesome. So my fourth point would be to simply get outside and experience creation, maybe in a different sense than you have up to this point. There's a lot of parks throughout the city of Red Deer that provide amazing experiences in terms of exploring creation, interacting with the natural world, viewing wildlife. The park that we're actually in the middle of right now is the Gates Lake Sanctuary, and Dan has referred to this park in some of his past talks. And this is a significant park in that it was the very first migratory bird sanctuary in the province. And to this day, it's a wildlife sanctuary and protects a lot of the natural world that we see around us. It's a great place to watch wildlife and to just take a walk. There's a 4-kilometer loop around the outside, and it's a great thing to do on an afternoon with your family. One thing that Ashley and I do in our family is mandate that our kids spend a portion of each day outside. So whether it's snowing, whether it's warm, they're outside, and there's obvious benefit from that. So yeah, lastly, I'd just say, get outside. Maybe what you want to do is explore a different park every week. Maybe you go cross-country skiing, maybe you go fishing. Come check out the sanctuary. There's a lot that can be done in Red Deer, and as we do that, as we explore the created world more and creation, we'll get to know our Creator in a deeper sense.
Well, thanks so much for sharing with us all the things that you shared today, Ken. I know I've heard you share these things with me and Kathy and our family a few times, and every time I hear it, I get more excited about some of the things that we can do as a family, and I hope that those of us that call Crossroads Church home begin to grab a hold of some of this stuff and begin to implement it in our families too. So thanks so much for today.
Yeah, you bet.